If same-sex marriage is accepted, the announcement will be official. America will have said that children do not need a mother and a father.
Back in the 1980s and 90s, I think that there was a great deal of hostility and fear toward gays and lesbians that was much more widespread than it is today.
The legal recognition of same-sex marriage would be social engineering beyond anything in the American experience.
Now in 2012, staunch conservatives are questioning the use of anti-gay rhetoric.
I think the gay rights issue makes the party look like it isn't a modern party. It doesn't understand the modern world.
I think the Republican Party is trying to keep the traditional values ingrained in the best way they can, but they're not actually listening.
With the advancement of LGBT civil rights, how are arguments against issues like marriage equality and the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell changing?
Michelle Bachmann, I think, sort of combines arch-conservative language, being anti-government.
I will permanently shut down the Department of Education and
with anti-LGBT language as well.
every time states have put this bill before the American people, they have voted in their states to retain the traditional definition of marriage as between one man and one woman.
I think the LGBT movement has moved the ball so far that now it's harder for those who are anti-gay to explicitly articulate their homophobia, so they have to hide and disguise what they're doing. And you see a lot of that when they talk about family values, they talk about traditional marriage and those types of things.
There are sexually confused children who could be pushed into a lifestyle that I don't think is appropriate with them.
Language has evolved. The LGBT community and our advocacy has evolved, and attacks against our community have evolved too.
The language of conservatism is designed to make people afraid of change. And it's historically been the case for 100 years.
When militaries throughout history of the greatest nations in the world have adopted the policy that fine for homosexuality to be overt, they're toward the end of their existence as a great nation.
Go back to the 40-hour work week or the idea of having a weekend. That's going to ruin us. It's going to take away freedom from business people. Any type of progressive change, they always said that this would lead to the end of the world. And in absolutely no instance have they been proven right.
This is done.
With President Obama signing the repeal to end the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy, conservative 2012 presidential candidates reinvigorated old arguments to support reinstating the ban.
You're going to put them in a very odd and uncomfortable environment. A lot of people, I believe, are going to leave. I think a lot of folks are not going to join who otherwise would have joined, and that's going to hurt our readiness. It's going to hurt our ability to defend this country.
The debate around repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell absolutely forced people to confront preconceived notions that they had of the gay and lesbian community. And it was in the papers. And there were stories about people who had done heroic things in war and were willing to die for their country, and somehow they weren't allowed to serve with integrity and be honest about who they were.
In the years since the repeal, studies have shown the reality of the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell has proven conservative arguments to be wrong.
Every indication we've had is things are fine. And even the surveys done by the Comprehensive Repeal Working Group showed that the fear was biggest amongst people who didn't know somebody who's gay. Because what is it? It's fear of the unknown.
How far will conservatives take anti-gay rhetoric? Recently, 2 states, Tennessee and Missouri, have embedded anti-gay rhetoric into controversial Don't Say Gay bills, which ban teachers from discussing homosexuality in schools. Conservatives like Tennessee's Stacey Campfield defended the bill when asked about it on CNN.
Let's leave it up to the families to decide when something is age appropriate, when it isn't age appropriate, when their children are ready to talk about those issues. Let's leave it up to the families to decide how they want to handle that issue.
And in Missouri, State Representative Zach Wyatt had a personal stand to make on this legislation.
My name is Zachary Wyatt, and I'm Missouri's 2nd District State Representative. I've served in the Missouri House for the past 2 years. I grew up in a town of a population of about 550, Novinger, Missouri. You know, all of us know everyone where I come from. Agriculture is our #1 industry. My district consists of a lot of conservative people. When I was in high school was when I embraced the Republican Party. I was actually registered as a Republican on my 18th birthday.
Yeah, and then so RSVP for the fair.
My big thing is I'm not a one-issue person, and no one should be. We are for fiscal responsibility and smaller government. And that's what led me to come to the Republican Party.
On May 2, 2012, Representative Wyatt responded to the advancement of House Bill 2051 with the bold decision to come out.
I'm not the first or last Republican to come out. Being gay has never been a Republican or Democrat issue, and it should never be. With national attention on the Missouri House of Representatives in regards to House Bill 2051, I'm compelled to still speak out against.
When I saw the Don't Say Gay bill, I was angered. It really hurt me to think that a lot of these colleagues that I serve with on the floor actually put their names on this bill. But that anger turned into my actions, and I'm glad that it did. Being the only openly gay Republican elected to state legislature in the nation, I'm glad that we're getting out there. It made me realize that we need to get more LGBT members in the Republican Party.
It's also always good to be with my friend Zach Wyatt, who just continues to look more relaxed and more confident. He's not running for re-election. Right now, Missouri is the place to start, grow, and expand a small business.
It upset me to see that this is what we were putting forth as legislation in the state of Missouri, but we're not putting forth something that's going to be a job creation bill for my constituents or the people in Missouri. I think the rhetoric has become more snide and more divisive over time. I think a lot of it is because the opponents of LGBT issues are losing. I think it's the older generation that's trying to spout the rhetoric and the younger generation seeing right through it.
How are young people influenced by anti-gay rhetoric? The Human Rights Campaign conducted a study this year to find out.
HRC just completed a survey of 10,000 LGBT youth across this country. 10,000, the largest sample size ever conducted. And what it shows is day in and day out, our youth hear negative messages. Over 90% of them hear negative messages about being gay. And 60% of those hear them from their elected leaders. There's no question that the negative rhetoric and the talk that insinuates that one is a second-class citizen has real-life impacts on particularly young people.
Almost all of the anti-gay rhetoric that we hear about gays in the military, about marriage, about all these various issues that are so controversial has centered on one theme, and that is fear. The reality is we have a half a dozen states in this country that now have same-sex marriage, and it hasn't undermined marriage. And I think the only thing that can really convince people is just to watch that change happen and to see that their fears were completely unfounded.
But as November elections approach, the presidential candidates are split on same-sex marriage.
It is important for me to go ahead and affirm that I think same-sex couples should be able to get married.
For a long time, I think from the beginning of my political career, I've made it very clear that I believe marriage should be a relationship between a man and a woman.
My name is Nikki Neely.
I'm Tyler.
Yet there is a wave of young conservatives, like Madeline Cook of Minnesota, speaking out for the freedom to marry.
I think it's important as a conservative to understand that we are not about limiting freedom and not about limiting rights. If we're put in the conservative bucket, it doesn't mean that we're anti, gay rights.
I'm here today because I'd like to give you my perspective and the perspective of most people I know who are a part of my generation, political party, and sexual orientation on why adding a constitutional amendment that would ban same-sex marriage is not only wrong on a moral front, but also takes our party in the wrong direction for future generations of Republicans.
All of the public opinion research shows a majority of young Republicans support marriage equality. In fact, if you look at polling across the board, the vast majority of young people not only support marriage equality, and by the way, that's regardless of their region of the country, their religious affiliation, and their party affiliation, they go a step further. They can't fathom that that's even a debate.
You've got, a much younger cohort, people under the age of 40, who are very split on this issue. They are not uniformly against the idea of same-sex marriage. And so, over 50% of young people under the age of 40 are in favor of the freedom to marry.
Now that the Democratic Party has decided to include language that accepts same-sex marriage into their national convention platform, many are wondering how the Republican Party will respond.
Richard Tassay, who is a gay Republican running in Massachusetts, is fantastic for the Republican Party. He looks very much like a Republican politician with a great head of hair and a great mind, and I think that he is absolutely instrumental to showing the party this is what a gay Republican looks like.
My hope is to be able to go to Washington and be a congressman who happens to be gay, rather than a gay congressman. It's up to me to really prove myself. The notoriety actually on a national level may help me be a better congressman on the local level. My philosophy is that the government should get off your back, out of your wallet, and away from the bedroom. And I think here in New England, that resonates. My partner and I live together. We own a business together. I would not have run if he did not think it was a good idea. Obviously, the party over the past few years hasn't lived up to what its original purpose was. And the Republican Party was a party that was founded on the basis of equality. Historically, there are trends and waves that take place, and we're in one right now. And I don't think that there's anything that's going to happen that's going to push back the advances that have been made. People will look back 10 years from now and say, well, what was the big fuss about? I think most people understand that we'll never have true equality in this country unless you have people on both sides of the aisle that are willing to stand up when an issue comes up and say, you know what, we should treat everybody equally, we should treat everybody fairly under the law. If I can play a role as part of the Republican caucus, being able to do that, I think I will be able to move the ball a little further along and hopefully pave the way for other people behind me.